Hello everyone, and welcome to the demonstration video for Excel Chapter 3. Alright, so you should have already gone through how to create your spreadsheets, add some data to it, and perform a lot of functions and formulas, which, to be quite honest, those two chapters are plenty enough to get you through pretty much any data entry job or to help you with your career. So especially when it comes to even accounting, a lot of different fields. You could use Excel and spreadsheets to record data, keep track of data, and also make it do the work for you pretty much. Okay, but in this chapter, we're going to go over how to create charts. Once more, if you want to follow along with the notes or the points I'm covering, you could download the skeleton notes here. For this demonstration, we're going to be downloading this perfect rental spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and download it myself. There we go. And then of course, make sure you open up your file. I'm going to do it for my downloads. You could go to your own file system and open it up. There we go. And once more, go ahead and hit enable editing so you could actually follow along with me. Okay, let me go ahead and zoom in so we could all see what we're working with. Notice there will be different sheets that I switch between. So again, just make sure you know how to navigate between these sheets. I'll tell you which one to go to in the homework. I also tell you which ones to go to perform certain tasks. So just make sure you're using these tabs down here. All right, now let's actually get into this video's material. So again, you learn how to do place data into the table, format it really nice, just like how we have with these tables. And also you learn how to use formulas and functions, which again, perfect for calculating certain things. Okay, but one other thing is visualizing your data. So of course we want to make tables so we could keep track of data. But if I would tell you to take a look at all of these numbers and see if you ask if you see a pattern or a trend, it's probably going to be very difficult to see what the patterns and trends are here. Even if you look down at these numbers, if I tell you right now which one has the highest, so we'll be working with rental properties here. These are how many days in which these rental properties were rented out. So if I look at the totals here, the question is, which one has the most rental days? And in which month? Well, more specifically, this is how much rental days we have in a single month, which you could look through the numbers and try to figure it out. But I'm guessing that it's going to be very difficult to actually read just instantly. So that's why we have something called charts and graphs, which helps us visualize the data. So if you ever seen those line graphs or those bar charts, you're going to learn how to create that here. Okay, so let's get into it. For now, just to make it simple, let's focus on just the rentals themselves. So these are different rental locations. And how many days they're rented out in January. So maybe we want to chart to visualize which rental property is more popular. Okay, to make a chart, there's actually a quick way, especially if you have data very formatted like this, and you're selecting things within a group. So what I'm actually going to have you do is go ahead, we're going to select the headers as well, which will be included with our chart. So go ahead in your sheet last year, select A4, cells A4 to B19. So notice I've selected the headers, so rental names and January, and all of the rental names, along with all of the days they were rented out in January. Okay, and you'll notice when I select this data, the selection has a little icon that appears on the bottom right. When you hover your mouse over it, it says quick analysis. What quick analysis is as in its name, a quick way to create a chart. So remember, Excel is kind of intuitive. It notices, hey, you're selecting data that looks like they relate to each other. Do you want to visualize it? And we'll say, sure, yes, I want to visualize it. So if you click on the quick analysis, or you'll notice you could do the control Q on your keyboard to get that. Go ahead and click on the quick analysis. Let me scroll up so you could actually see better on the screen. There we go. And you'll see that it gives you different options for charts or formattings that you could use for this data. Go over to the tab Charts. There we go. And it gives you recommended charts that you could use for the selected data. One of them being a clustered column. And when you hover over the option, you'll see that it shows you what the data will look like with the different columns along with each of the rental names. There's also the clustered bars. So again, just different ways to do it. And if you wanted more selection, you would do the more charts, which I'll actually show you in another example. For this example, go ahead and do the clustered bar, since this is a little easier to read than the clustered column. There we go. And if I bring this down here, you'll see that it creates the chart for you. So that's one way to create charts. I'll show you another way. So you could just leave this for now. Let me see another sheet we could work. So we're going to come back to this sheet and still work on this chart. But let me find another sheet that we could work with. Maybe here. Let's do incomes in the rental income sheet. Okay. Another way to create charts is you're going to go up to your ribbon and select the Insert tab. Okay. And you'll notice in the group over here, Charts, there are a lot of different options you could choose for charts. There is one called Recommended Charts, which in this case, if you select certain data, you could click Recommended Charts. It'll give you a list of charts it recommends to use for good visualization. Let's go ahead and practice by here. We're going to see with different rental names, there are different incomes in June. So I'm going to have you select, so again, in the sheet rental income, select A4 to A19. And you'll notice, you'll probably be asking, Miss Ojeda, how do I get to the June income? Because if I try to select G4 to G19, it deselects my other column. Well, first let's do A4 to A19 again. So select that selection. And if you want to choose other cells that's not grouped together with what you just chose, you're going to hold down on your Control key. So remember, that's the key on the bottom left of your keyboard if you're doing Windows. And then you could go ahead and select your other column. So watch as I do June income, G4 to G19. There we go. So that works for any selection of cells. So especially if it has a separation between it, always hold down on your Control key and select. Also, quick note, you could use that same method for choosing different text, basically selecting multiple things at once for anything, files, text. You could do that same method. Okay, but now since we selected our columns, let's go ahead and go to our charts group and let's go ahead and click recommended charts. Let's see what Excel has in store for us. There we go. And you'll see with our selected data, it gives us recommended charts. It's giving us a lot of bar graphs. Even this one gives us a semi-bar graph and line graph. And you could choose which one you would like. Maybe we want to do the July income again. For the sake of this demonstration, let's go ahead and here, let's just do this one right here. So we're going to select this. It's called Pareto. We're going to select Pareto and you're going to click OK. There we go. And it creates the chart for us. So that's another way to create charts. You could go, so back to your Insert tab, you could select data, and you could always click on recommend charts, or if you have a specific one in mind, you could click in these different options. So you'll notice there's a button for column or bar charts, and they even have versions for 3D looks. There's one for hierarchy charts. This is fun to mess around with. If you have access to the textbook, look in the pause and practice sections. That's another way in which you could practice your skills. There's a cool example using a sunburst chart that you could utilize. Or you could also research on your own how to create a sunburst chart in Excel. Again, a lot of fun stuff. We have our line and area charts, very good for seeing trends. There we go, statistics. If you want a pie chart, it's there. And a lot more scatter plots. They have everything you need, even including charts that have those heat maps, if that's what you're looking for. Pivot charts or pivot tables, I recommend you take a look at the Chapter 4 resources, as unfortunately I won't go over it in this demonstration video, but pivot tables are very crucial, especially if you're doing some kind of business applications. Okay, so that's how we create charts. Again, you could use the Insert tab, Charts group, or you could use the Quick Analysis if you selected a group of data. Let's go back to the last year sheet. All right. And one thing is creating a chart. Another is making it appealing for your audience to look at. Something like this can be kind of nice to work with, but maybe we want to, again, make it look a little more professional. So there's different ways to manipulate how your chart looks. Well, for one, notice when you click into the chart, it selects it like an object, kind of like how in the Word documents when you select images or graphics. This works the same way. And you'll notice every time you select a chart, you get two new tabs that appear up here: Chart Design and Format. Before I get into those, let's do some just simple manipulating of this chart. For instance, you'll notice every time I hover my mouse over it, you get that little cursor with the arrows, the cross and arrows. That means you could move it around. So you could click and drag it to where you would like. So now it's not covering my table anymore. I could just put it over here. There we go. And if you want to make it bigger, notice you have the little white dots on the sides and corners. You could use those to expand it. So if I go over to the bottom right corner, I could go ahead, click and drag it over to make it bigger. I could also use the sides to make it smaller, taller, or wider. Notice how one note for those who manipulate charts and one note for anyone making a chart for business practices. Usually these are what you'll show in presentations. Charts are what you show to show performance and usually help you with your pitches of business ideas or keeping your business alive. You want to make sure that you don't edit the data you're working with. Don't put in false data. That is a big no-no. That could get you fired and not ethical. But you could manipulate how the chart looks. For instance, notice something as simple as making it wider and making it smaller can have a big difference of how you see these measurements. So some food for thought. Again, formatting can be a big tool to use, but please do not edit the data you have. Okay, so that's just some discretion aside when I tell you about these formatting skills. Okay, so again, you notice you could make it bigger, you could move it around to how you would like. And when you go to your tabs, Chart Design, so go to your Chart Design tab, you'll see that there's different styles we could apply to this chart right here. If you click on the drop down for quick styles, you'll see that there's a couple of more you could choose from, and when you hover over each of them, it gives you different options. Let me do, this one kind of looks sleek here. Let me do style 8. When you hover over each one has a name. So let me do style 8. And if you don't like the blue colors, you could still change it. Over here in the change colors button, you could click and there's different palettes you could choose. There we go. Unfortunately, it looks like this one won't have a gradient because we're just working with one set of categories for rental names. But again, you could choose what you would like. Maybe we want to do orange. Select it and it changes the color. There's some other layouts you could do. For instance, if you look over to the far left in the chart layouts, there's a quick layout which you could select. And notice when I hover over each one, it has different ways to format where data is, what data looks like. Even some of them, there we go. Some of them even display the exact numbers just in case you want to show exactly where these values are coming from. And some of them also have a little legend to the side. Let me select layout 9 so you could see. There we go. You could see a little legend on the side, especially again if you have different categories. Legends are nice to know which is which. Okay. So that's some quick formatting you could do. Something else. So you could do that formatting, and again, it's the same practices go for every chart you find. There's different styles, colors, and quick layouts you could do. Something I do want to bring your attention to is different parts of your chart. Well, and actually I already selected itself, but you'll notice every time I select the chart, there's 3 buttons that appear on the side. Hover your mouse over the one with the plus, and it tells you it's chart elements. Go ahead and select it, and it'll either appear over here on the right or here on the left. You'll notice that chart elements is a little drop down with different check boxes. Chart elements is basically what makes up the chart. So there's a title up here. You have, in this case with the bar graph, different axes such as the numbers and the names of the rental properties, and even the columns, the lines that are being displayed. All of those are different parts that you can manipulate. For example, you notice here we have a legend, but maybe we don't want a legend. You could go to the chart elements. So again, it's with this plus button. You could toggle it on and off. And you could go over to the legend, uncheck that box, and it disappears in our chart. The same goes for like the chart title. That's the January up here. If we don't want it, you could just select it and it disappears. But usually we want a chart title, so let's go ahead and select it. And the same for data labels. You could go ahead and deselect it, and that's the numbers that display. Now they disappeared. If you want them back, just select and it comes in. So those are different chart elements you could turn on and off. One of the ones you'll be working with is the grid lines. That's the lines that show you where certain values are. If you want to find more grid lines, you'll go ahead. Notice there's a little arrow to the side of it for more options. Click on it. There you go, and you have more options to toggle on and off. For example, if I do the primary horizontal grid lines, notice we get the lines up and down. I could deselect it and it turns off. If I want primary, minor, vertical, those are the smaller ones, going up and down, you could select it and it turns it on, so you could get more exact measurements. So those are chart elements, and notice if you're working with more plots or graph lines, you could do a trend line, and it'll create a trend line on your chart to really show the pattern that's occurring. So those are chart elements that you could turn on and off. Make sure you keep that in mind. The button below it is chart styles, which is just very similar to what you see in the chart design tab. So if I select it, it also shows you the different quick styles you could choose from. And if you need to quickly change the color, you could go to this tab, and it also shows you different colors to choose from. Ooh, let me turn it to this screen. There we go. And of course you could deselect the button again. so it could get rid of it. So the biggest reason why I mentioned about chart elements is because when you go to your Format tab, so again, select your chart, go to your Format tab. These features here are for editing or formatting specific elements. Put your attention in the Format tab all the way to the left, the current selection. The very top text box, when you hover over it, is called Chart Elements. What is said in this box is what you will be changing when you use these features in the ribbon. For example, the chart area is the entire chart itself. So notice, very similar to the graphics that you used in Microsoft Word, you have different shape styles, word art styles. If the current selection is chosen at chart area, and I want to do the shape outline as maybe here, let me select the shape outline and let me choose a bright orange. Notice that it changes the entire border of this chart. Let me make it thicker so you could actually see. So shape outline, weight, let me make it thicker to 3 point or 6 point, just to add emphasis. And you see it's applied to the entire chart area. And if I do the shape fill, notice that it does it for the entire chart. Same with word art styles, everything is applied to everything within the chart. So if you're wondering, okay, what if I just want to edit the text here or the lines in the chart itself? Well, you have to go over to your current selection and click on the drop down, and you'll see different elements that you could change. For example, the chart title, if I select it, anything I change here will only affect the title. You'll notice that now the title is highlighted. So maybe if I want the title to be a different word style, something fancier, I could go ahead and select a word style, and notice it only changes the title. Only the title, nothing else. If I want to change something else, so Format tab, go to your current selection, click on the drop down. Maybe I want the major horizontal lines to be more prominent from the smaller ones. You'll go ahead and do the horizontal axis major grid lines, select, and you could see here in the chart, it's showing that it's being selected. And I could go to the shape styles and find, maybe let's do this dark, there we go, let's do this black style, select it, and now it's more prominent in our chart. So make sure you go to your Format tab and edit your current selection. Even things like the plot area, when I select it, notice it just chooses this plot area in here. So if I want to change it to a different color, maybe let's say a gray, I'll do the shape fill. So current selection says plot area, do shape fill. Let me do a light gray, select it. There we go. And it changes the plot area. So just be careful what you are selecting when it comes to the current selection. Again, anytime whatever is in this text box, in the chart elements text box, will be changed when you select these options. But one of the last things we're going to do is we need to, there we go. Let's say the title, we don't want January. Maybe we just want to say that these are different days rented. Go ahead and notice I could click into the chart and double click on elements as well to edit it. And even then you could also get another formatting pane here to help you with, it has the same things as in the format ribbon. But you could also click into elements, and in the case of the title, I could just delete the text here. There we go, and say days rented. And you could just hit, I hit enter, but you could just click away to confirm. Okay. So now those are different skills that you could do for formatting your chart. But one last thing is the data itself. So maybe again, you don't have to edit Actually, you shouldn't edit the data here, the values here, because that would be false data. That would be representing false data, which again could get you fired. But again, you can manipulate the chart how you would like. For example, sometimes sometimes certain data can make the rest look bad or look better. Like let's say we don't want to show that our weekend cottage is not doing so well. We could remove it from the chart, so we don't have to remove it from our data, but we can remove it from our chart by simply going over to, you'll notice that one of the last boxes over here, it has a little funnel symbol, and when you hover over it, it says chart filters. Go ahead and select it. There we go. And then you get this options over here. The values are the values you're displaying in the charts. So notice, there we go. You could do it by series. So in this case, it's doing all of the properties in January. There's the categories, which is each of the properties on their own. And when I hover over each one, it shows you how it's being represented in the chart. We could scroll down and find our weekend cottage. And if we don't want to see it, you could just uncheck its box and hit the apply button. There we go. And now it's not being shown in our chart. And you could close this filter and no longer see it. So again, it is kind of a little bit of a manipulative way to display your data, but at least you're not changing the data over here. So just again, keep your ethics in check. Okay, so that's just simply removing data or series from being represented in the chart. But let's say we want to edit this to include not just January, but maybe just February and March. So maybe a quarter of the year. To do that, you're going to select your chart and you're going to go back to the chart design tab. You're going to see a selection called data, so it's the data group, and a button called select data. Go ahead and click on it. And this is how we select the data that is included in our charts. You'll notice that it separates it by the legend entries, the series, or the horizontal axis labels, the rental properties. You could change all the data being represented by editing what's up here in the chart range data. So I could delete this, and works just like with your functions and formulas. You could go ahead and either type in the data you want to represent, or you could select it. If I want to add a new series, or again, the rental name February and March, again, I could just delete it. And let me select A4 to D19. And it will go ahead and update. We'll edit this over here. But it'll go ahead and update your series and and your properties. If you want to do just individual series, you could have just clicked the add over here, edit it as such. If you want to remove some, you could select each series. Let's say if we don't want March anymore, we could just remove it. There we go. And it's no longer going to be represented in our chart. If we want to add March back in, you'll click add. There we go. And the series name, you need to select where the cell of the name is first. So if it's March, I need to select D4 to say, hey, this is March. And the series values, you're going to delete what's in this box, and then you could select all the data related to the properties in March. So that's D5 to D19. You could confirm the values over here on the right, again, just like your functions and formulas, to see if that's indeed what you want to select. And then let's hit OK, and March is included back in. So again, different ways you could go about your data. Now let's hit OK. There we go. And now we've included March and March, and February. Let's go ahead and expand this so we could actually have a better look at our values. And of course, we could format everything. For example, I could get rid of the data labels. Let's include our legend so we can actually see what we're looking at. And then we could go to our format to get rid of this. There we go, get rid of the border, as well as it fixes the title for me. Okay. And if I want to, there we go. Notice I could keep selecting different properties. And for example, these rental property names, if you want to increase it, you could still go back to home and you still have your font group, and we could still increase it with this font size. Let's do 12. There we go. So everything is more readable. Same with the legend. Again, you could select it on your chart. Make sure you have that little border around it. And you could, again, go to the font, change it. Let's do 12 as well. And there we go. Okay. So those are all the skills you need for creating charts. So again, I know this one just focused on bar charts, but it's very similar for all the other types of charts. Editing the data as well as editing how it looks. So just keep in mind, usually I recommend having an idea of how you want the charts to look. You could write it down. You could use other software to kind of visualize how you would want it to look. And then you could edit it here in Excel to get a close match. Just, of course, make sure you're being careful what you are selecting for the chart elements. Again, you could always click to the elements yourself on the chart, or usually I would say the safer bet is to go to your Format tab, go to the current selection, and choose this drop down. All right. Of course, if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be here to assist you. Thank you, everyone.